Say have fun in your podcast.
For your podcast.
Say I love you.
I love you.
Welcome back. This is the Nicaraguan Podcast. I am one half of the I-70 Connect, 30 pieces of silver. My other co-host, the KC Stork's not available at the moment, but we are going to get back and record together. But in lieu of World Mental Health Day, which was October 10th, we are recording on October 11th today. We missed it. And I feel that our podcast usually, while we are a little bit ratchet from time to time and we kind of just talk about a whole bunch of slew of things, we do want to make a focus on mental health and behavioral health, and especially within the POC communities. Everybody knows in this podcast I am Hispanic, and the KC Stork, he is black or whatnot, for lack of better words right now. And within our communities, mental health is not really discussed for whatever reason. But at least this podcast allows us to just kind of touch the topic, maybe dive into a little bit than what we normally would be within our family members, and maybe open the doors to other people, people of color, or within our communities to just be free to talk about it, not be afraid, and kind of eliminate the stigma. But with that being said, I have a returning guest, Royce Joyce. We all know, you've heard him in a couple episodes before. He's very insightful, and he is working within the mental health, just like Winston is or whatnot. He is actually taking part and he dove into the mental health, behavioral health field. But I'll let him expand on that. And we also have a third guest, Michelle Lynch, and is a friend of Royce, and I'll have
girlfriend.
Girlfriend. I'm sorry. Yeah, hey, what's going on, Royce? How you doing? How's everybody doing today?
Oh man, I'm good, bro. Man, I appreciate you inviting myself and Michelle on the podcast, bro. It's definitely an honor and a privilege. Yes, it is. Yes, sir. It's a privilege, it's a Hennessy privilege, but, no Hennessy, just a privilege, you know what I'm saying? But yeah. So, yeah, man, we were just talking on the phone, man, and I was just talking to Michelle, and then it just kind of filtered over. It was like, hey, Michelle, would you like to be on the podcast? And she was like, yeah, babe, why not? And so she's all the way over in Honolulu, Hawaii. So we have an islander on the podcast right now, all the way in Hawaii. So, babe, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Michelle Lynch, and I currently reside in Honolulu, Hawaii. And I'm honored to be on this podcast, so thank you. And yeah. So,
all right,
it's the first time ever, so
it's okay. I mean, we all had our first, so yeah. But it's okay. I mean, especially right now that we're gonna get into the topic of mental health and discuss a couple other things with Royce. I think. Well, one, thank you for coming on, because it's always good to have the male's perspective, especially people of color. But at the same time, like, now we have a female's perspective of mental health, and maybe you could shed some light on what it is, at least on the women's perspective. We understand that it's only as an individual, but you're also a female, and your opinions do matter, and how you perceive, your perceptions are That's also important to, and that's also it needs to be accounted for and taken into account as well. So
Yeah.
whatever you
Yeah.
can provide, whatever input you may, we may not always agree, but that's
Yeah.
okay. But and we'll respect that. But it's always good to have that different perspective as well. So thank you for joining us. And
Yeah.
this is a first from Honolulu. This is like what, three different
Yeah.
time zones? Ooh man, all
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
no,
It's
Wow,
ten
this
no.
fifty in the morning.
is wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's early.
with that being said, so October 10th was yesterday, and it was World Mental Health Day. And so basically, I'll just read this from the World Health Organization. World Mental Health Day is observed on October 12th every year, with the overall objective of raising awareness of mental health issues around the world and mobilizing efforts in support of mental health. The day provides an opportunity for all stakeholders working on mental health issues to talk about their work and what more needs to be done to make mental health care a reality for people worldwide. I, for one, I deal with mental health issues, behavioral health issues. I've talked to it. I talked about them extensively in the past episodes, and probably going forward as well. But it is important, and it's something that I know that we, especially in my personal experiences, that it's not an easy topic to approach. Even when you go to the doctor or when they ask you certain questions, it almost feels like they're just going through the motion. They're not necessarily
Hmm.
asking you because there's a genuine care about that, you know. And when I do say certain things and bring up like kind of like red flags, it almost like they fumble, and they don't know what to do with the next step. But they gotten better, especially like
Hmm.
the more that I go and see my providers and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but what are your experiences with mental health or with mental health dealings, whether with you personally or what you've seen, what you've experienced, Royce?
For me, man, I'll just go from personal, man. My mental health experience, man, because I, I didn't have my daughters for like I didn't have a relationship with my daughters for 15 years, and so mentally that took a toll on me in a number of different ways, man. So having two daughters, I mean having a child for one, which I mean we all can relate, but then not being able to have a relationship with them, that's another thing. And then if you haven't done anything wrong, that makes you feel some type of way, and this is like for 15 years, man. 15 years I wasn't able to really have a good relationship with my daughters, and because of that, like, I mean, even to this day, like my oldest daughter, both of them, they don't even know how to ride bikes.
Wow,
I
how
mean,
old are they?
like 21 and 16.
Wow.
Tw- 21 and 16 don't even know how to ride bikes, you
Do
know.
do they
So
ever care to learn or?
yeah, no, I actually this past summer I tried to teach my oldest daughter how to ride a bike. I tried to teach her on my bike. It was a little difficult, and she still don't know how to ride it, but still, man, it's like wow, man. I mean, those are the moments that I miss, as far as a father daughter relationship. Now, thank God that she's 21 now and she's married, um, and I'm able to have that relationship. But I mean, you can never recover time, but you can always redeem it. So that's what really took a toll on me. Not just that, but my relationship with her mother. It was physically and mentally abusive. I mean, and the reason why we got married was because I didn't. I mean, I had low self-esteem. I thought that she was all I could get, and so I better just take this and make it work. Which is why I stayed in the marriage for like 9 years. Um, so I'm sure I dealt with depression, anxiety, all kinds of stuff. In those 9 years that we were together, and even afterwards. I had addiction to pornography, stuff like that, man. So I'm over that and past that now, thank God. But I I mean, nonetheless, those are all things that I had to deal with in my life. And even taking that over into relationships, man. That's one thing. When you go through stuff, if you haven't completely healed from it, it'll carry over into your relationship. I always say that you repeat what you don't repair. And that when you're going through stuff, a lot of us just go through stuff without actually growing through it and learning from it. And that's one of the things that I'm actually, learning to do is starting to grow through the um, the um, the the situations, the events of my life, man, so that I don't repeat this thing anymore. And Michelle and I, man, we've had our things in our relationship, man, but it's only by the grace of God, man, that we're still together. But mental health, man, is something that I like to say it's an everyday thing. It's like you get up in the morning, right? You put your pants on, you brush your teeth, you get in the car, and you're on your way to work. And then let's say someone cuts you off. That could ruin your whole day, and that's mental health right there. And see, and at times we tend to complicate this thing, and we always go to the extreme, which is mental illness versus mental health and mental health awareness, which is which we that's what we're trying to communicate on a daily basis, is removing the stigma of mental illness from mental health and letting people know that mental health is what we need every day, and that's in the form of meditation. um, when you feel like you have anxiety, when you feel like you might be you know unhappy, you having negative thoughts, things like that, it's addressing those issues and looking for a solution or a strategy to combat those things, man. I mean, some things that we go through in life aren't our fault, but at the same time, you know, we still have to deal with that issue. So yeah, man. Michelle, what are your thoughts on the whole mental health thing as it relates to a female? And then if you want to talk about, situations that you've encountered, I know in Hawaii, like um, the homeless thing is really bad over there, and so she sees it a lot as far as mental illness. But I'll let you say something, babe.
I think, I didn't, when I grew up, I didn't know what mental health was. I mean, it wasn't something that was talked about when I was a child. So if something was wrong, I mean, you never really brought it up. You just dealt with it. And I think, as a female, we go through things and we tend to try to always make it better and not allow anybody to see our pain because nobody wants to see us broken. But the reality is that we go through things and sometimes, um, some things can't be avoided. Like my father decided that it wasn't his thing to be a dad, for my brother and I. So he left it, when I was 6 months old, and I haven't seen him since. And that has, I've tried to find him every year, and I just wondered, you always have questions like um, and you'll truly actually I may never know what the real reason is why he left. But I do know that I I struggled with rejection, the fear of rejection, and that in and of itself is super debilitating. And I wish that there was something like this growing up, so it wasn't just like a stigma that okay, you're depressed, okay, you have anxiety. It's you have so many names written on your heart as to who you are that no one's ever identified what the root issue is. So I think I struggled with self rejection, and I think that was the hardest thing for me and a lot of women that I know go through it because you know it limits you from living, number one, an abundant life. It limits you from taking those steps and doing the things that you want to do because I truly feel that um, with the proper prescription and diagnosis we could actually be free from some of the things, because rejection is a huge thing, and it filters over to relationships. The easiest thing is to suppress it with something that'll make you feel good, um, and those are the things that usually get you into trouble. But you know um, I they put me on so much medicine. Like, I think everything that they did was to try to suppress the anxiety and the depression, because it turns into something so much more. And I went through anxiety and depression for many of years. I mean, I even went up excessively in weight, over 130 pounds in a couple of years, and totaled cars, and I was addicted to like Xanax, and the doctors gave me a whole bunch of medication, and it just really suppressed things. And it really wasn't to coming into a place where you really come to the end of yourself, and the only way is to go back up. But you struggle with it for many, many, many of years, and I still haven't hold on a second. I still haven't fully understood, why we go through the things, until like Royce said, by the grace of God, I'll say that I was able to overcome that. But mental health is real, and for females, it's really hard, with some of the things that they do to cope with it. So, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing. And I know that this podcast sometimes, we'll joke and poke fun at certain things, but there's also always kind of like, you gotta read your audience and the tone that we're gonna take. But before it ever gets to a humorous or a comedic point, one, I thank you both for just. I know you guys don't go into full details of what it is that you're dealing with, and that's fine. That's okay. But thank you for even just sharing or elaborating on some of the things that from your personal experience, and you guys talked about certain things that I've personally dealt with as well or experienced, excuse me, in the sense that we kind of recognize something within ourselves or something that's different, right? Or that we're dealing with something. We just don't understand it, right? And so there's that fear that it starts to initiate, at least for me, right? Yeah. And then you basically come up to a point that you're going to you got to make a decision of whether you're going to live with this and deal with it like how you mentioned, Michelle, or whether you're going to I like that phrase that you use, and I always like what you say. You can't fix what you don't repair, or you're going to repeat what you can't repair. Yeah. And I like that because you come to a crossroad that you're either tired of dealing with it, and now you're looking for help or assistance, whether it be medication, whether it be therapy, whether it be just casual conversation. And that's one thing that, and there's a lot of stigma, and even with me, like, especially being in the military, and then most of it just manifesting from that, and how it actually manifests is like just through anxiety. So with anxiety, there's a bunch of things that can affect it. Now, me going to the VA or and seeking help or whatnot, and being proactive about it, think that they initially what they did was they kind of just. They gave me like a cookie cutter treatment, like, okay, you come over here, you have PTSD, you're depressed, we're gonna give you this medicine, and this medicine. And I'm like, but you've only seen me for like 2 minutes. You haven't even reviewed my chart, and all of a sudden you're just throwing all these medications at me. You're trying to medicate me. You're not trying to help me, not necessarily cope, but or just kind of maneuver through this, because a lot of the times. Maybe somebody else before me, they needed that medication, and I'll never knock getting medicated. I'll never knock that because they're there for a reason. You know what I'm saying? So, but not all of us come to a professional seeking medication. We're there seeking some guidance or to kind of understand it, because the thing with me was what prompted me to get help finally or reach out. It was the fact that I was going to be a father, and I realized that I wanted to be there for my kids. You know what I mean? Or my child, but kids, because we're probably gonna have more kids too. But so for me, it was kind of important, and me being around veterans and seeing how mental health has deteriorated the ability of my friends, some of my close friends, and how they've been affected, and how their loved ones are affected. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that to the people that are around me, that I love, that I care about, and I didn't want them to be afraid of asking me the certain questions. Just a simple question. I know my wife. She's like, I opened up to her about certain things. Well, basically a lot of things, because I know that I can tap into her right away. She's like my immediate person that I can actually talk to and help me out. But for me, it was just that I wanted to get ahead of it. I didn't want to wait till I was 60 and be an angry old man type of thing. And like you, Royce, there's certain things that I see from other people, and believe it or not, I always take, like, when I met you and I met my friend, the KC Stork Winston. There's certain things that I pick up on people, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go by that. I see the pain that my friends are going through, and I don't want to experience that. You know what I mean? So that kind of like motivates me to continue on this path of getting better. I mean, I do take medication, but there's also like therapeutic help, just talking, being around family members and all that stuff. So for me, it has been more of being a better father. And part of it does stem from growing up in a single parent home, and not having my quote unquote father figure, growing up. I'm not gonna completely totally blame that on that or use that as a crutch or whatnot, because there is significance to that. But for me
It does. It
personally,
plays a role.
yeah. So for me specifically, I can say that had a little bit, but it doesn't really all stem from that. So, but that my history has allowed me to try to be a better man, try to be a better father, better husband, better brother, better friend, and better overall person. So I'll give that a little bit of credit or whatnot. But with females, like you mentioned, Michelle, it already within our the Latin community, the Hispanic community, we don't talk about that. There's that notion of hey, you just deal with it, carry on, you just bottle it in. And from what you were saying, and I know women do this too, there's that you don't want, there's that vulnerability. It exposes you, and and there's already, like, you're already at a disadvantage, quote unquote, in the eyes of men, being a female, right? I don't personally feel that way, but there is that the general stereotype, right?
Yeah.
That
Well, I think it kind of follows. I think it starts with one thing, and it definitely, I mean, mental health, mental illness, it's real, but I don't really think that anybody really stepped in and grasped the idea that it's not something that we brought upon ourselves. I mean, there are certain life things that happen, life events that sometimes you can come to a place where you just kind of like check out. You just pretend that other stuff happens, and you make it seem like everything is okay to everybody else. And on the inside, it's like Royce was always saying, you don't know what goes on behind those closed doors. People are struggling, and they try to hide things. For me, growing up in Hawaii, my mom's a single mom as well. And we moved to Hawaii from Alaska, and I went straight home from school, and I was on a plane. And I was in Hawaii in the next 10 hours. I never looked back. I never got a chance to say goodbye to friends. I ended up, fast tracking, growing up really fast. I had 2 children by the time I was 20. I wasn't married. My kid's father went to federal prison for a good 8-9 years to raise my kids by myself. I've been through some stuff, but I always knew that, okay, I never had a relationship with the Lord until, later on in life, but I knew that the things that I went through were going to be such an amazing story and a testimony later on. So I do know there's a journey and there's a process to it. I get it now. But there's seasons in life that you'll go through. But when you come to the end of yourself, and there will be the end of yourself, where you like, man, somebody is going to come in and say like, hey, what's going on? You okay? You good? But but the thing is, people over here, especially in the islands, they have a hard time of sharing that vulnerability, that transparency, and they keep things in until people snap and they do things. I'm living in Waikiki right now with my mom because my house is being remodeled and I live out towards the countryside. So I'm experiencing some chaos. I'm seeing people, hundreds of people in a park, homeless. Like, 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 it breaks my heart because I wake up early. I go out to the beach, I grab a Starbucks, and I see people. Then I saw a police car this morning drive through the park and like hurting and corralling all the people sleeping. And it broke my heart because we're human. These are people. And I'm looking at these police like, you guys can't get out of your car and shine a flashlight or something? I mean, that's the world we live in. It's hard sometimes. And for me, I'm like, how do these guys get help? Who's listening to these people? They somebody's daughters, sons, could be a husband, could be, you don't know. And that's why, when I think about the things that I went through, oh yeah, it was bad. But the thing is like my life is totally, totally in a different place now, praise God. But to know that there are people, so many of them, I had no idea, because you can literally be sheltered, and a lot of people won't share what they're going through because they don't want to be labeled. They don't want to be, there's really no treatment plan. And that's the frustrating thing, because okay, so someone will get arrested for loitering, for doing whatever, and then they can only keep them for 24 hours, and then they let them out on the same thing. And there's no place for them. In Hawaii, you can get a one-way ticket, get off the plane, get immediate housing, get immediate food and assistance, and which is great, but there's no plan. And that's why it's just so sad that a lot of these people go through things and they mentally check out. They suppress everything. Everything is like compartmentalized in their brain to where it's like, if I bring this up, they don't want to. They park it. And I'm a worship leader at church, and I just want to say that I use my pain to write music and to really share what I know that will really heal, set free, deliver, all that great stuff. But the thing is, when that time comes, then that time comes. But all I know is that I can relate to a lot of people for a lot of things, and really spend time and be normal with them, relate to them, listen to them, hear them, talk to them. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? Praise God, I went through that. But I'm the one that's down in the trenches with them, not judging them. I'm like real. Like, what you need, man? Get out the four walls. Everybody's too like in there. And that's what Royce and I do. And like, it's an honor to be here, because it's like on this podcast, because it's like so many people, they're going through it. But it just takes one person to listen. You know what I mean? One person to help, like Royce, to step into this calling, to be able to get into mental health, to be able to really learn more about it and share and be an advocate, be it NAMI. I mean, I follow him on social media. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind that there's an organization, matter of fact, with me and stuff. And all I want to do is quit my job and help, to be honest with you, because it's an epidemic and there needs to be more awareness and more attention and more people who have a passion for it. So I can spend a whole month on my story and say, woe is me and stuff. But the thing is that I had to dust myself off. I had to get up and I had to say, okay, now what do I do about it? What I got to do? What's my part in this? And I think that's collectively, I mean, that's the biggest thing, is who's willing to step up, share their story, talk about how they overcame something. Yep, I truly believe you need medication. You know why? Because there is a time where you need to be able to get balance to come out of a season, because the struggles are real. I was on Cymbalta, Xanax, what was it called? It was a popular one back in the day. But I was on so much that, and I can't believe I remember the story. I was on, I actually totaled my car because I started to drink a lot during the time of depression, because I was so like checked out and I was taking Xanax. I totaled my car, and I don't even remember doing it. And it was in a parking lot. It was crazy. And I ran out of Xanax. And I went to the hospital, and I went to the pharmacy and I said, hey, can I just get half before my doctor gets in? And the pharmacist says, no, you need a prescription refill. I said, no, just give me half and then I'll just wait. And they said, ma'am, have a seat. I'm going to call security. Well, guess what? That was the last time I took a pill of Xanax. They basically finally said, you need to go to a psychiatrist. Long story short is I got off of it. I went to a place where someone actually listened and was slowly but surely weaned off the medicine. But it is a process. But see, some of the people, they just choose not to talk about it, and they just suppress it, and it turns into a bunch of chaos, you know. So I know I'm going on a little bit, but I've never had a chance to talk about this actually, which is crazy. It's good.
Well, I'm enjoying it. I'm listening. I mean, this
Oh,
see
thank
this is
you.
this
Yeah.
this is what like see this is why we always try to have like a at least lately we try to have like a structure or whatnot, kind of sticks to it. But you never know how the conversation is going to work.
Yeah,
And if we
I
really
know
are going to
what.
try to like push this podcast, the podcast necessarily is not always going to be mental health related or whatnot. But part of the conversations that we have between my friends, Royce, or anybody else that comes on, just talking it helps. It just helps
Yeah,
people to unload. I just
yeah,
had a couple of days ago. I just had a conversation with my oldest friend. I was able to reconnect with him again, and this is the
yeah,
person like for 2.5 years that for what my junior year through graduating year, senior year, and through the summer, we slept to like in the same room. Our beds were like less than 4 feet apart from each other, and there was times, and we were just kind of like reminiscing on some of the things. I mean, yeah, I left for the military and then came back, but me leaving that really affected him, and I didn't realize how
yeah,
much it affected him until we actually got down and talked about it, and
yeah.
that put me like just even thinking about it. That put me like emotionally, it really affected me.
Oh, yeah,
So I know mentally, it's going. It has some effect on it, but I didn't realize how much it was. But even then,
yeah.
like just talking to him, I think we talked for like 3 hours on the pod. I ended up turning into a show.
Wow.
I mean, there's
Yeah,
certain things. I mean, we're not gonna address everything, but there were things that he finally told me that me leaving really did affect him, and it was kind of one of those things that the group that we always hung out with or clique or whatnot, it was like
yeah,
we didn't realize. We always thought that somebody was the one that held the group together, but we didn't realize who it was
yeah.
until I actually left. When I left, I didn't think of it I didn't think of it, but when I left, he came out and said like, "You were the one that held this group together,
Wow.
regardless of what other impacts other people had. You were the glue for this." And I took that to heart. I almost broke down in tears because I was like, "Bro, I've never felt like someone that would play that kind of role in somebody's life, let alone a group." I mean, these are guys that I talked to, went to school with, hung around, did a bunch of stupid stuff with,
Yep.
and good stuff too. So, but I'm not the one that I've never felt like I needed to play that role or wanted to play that role. But being that glue, he said, you once you left, I mean, we all stopped talking to each other. Everybody went their separate ways, and that really did a number on him in the sense
Mhm.
that he didn't know how to deal with it. The friend that he had that that held him down as far as like just being able to conversate he didn't have that anymore. I went
Yeah,
away to the military, and I'm always gonna create friends. Got to experience different things.
yeah,
So, and I was able to talk to other people. But my friend back home, he had no one to talk to. He's Hispanic too, so he couldn't talk to his family about that.
yeah,
All the other friends that went away. So basically, he went from being in a group to being by himself and trying to
wow.
navigate life for the better half of like 7, 8 years until we finally started to reconnect again. And that took a toll on him. So just the conversation, just being able to talk and
Mhm.
unload and free your mind,
Yep.
that also helps. And that's the thing that I'm glad you said that there's no treatment. There's no cookie cutter treatment. I think,
Yep.
and I can only speak for the VA, and I know that the VA, when I came back the second time from deployment, I know the VA was going to that cookie cutter treatment. You get this, and that.
Yep.
But over the last couple of years, I don't know if leadership changed or what it was, but there's been a shift into how people are going to be treating. It could be that the veteran population has gotten younger, so you
Yeah.
have to adapt how you attack mental health, behavioral health issues, and also, the range of it, because now you have female veterans that are dealing with all sorts of issues. Not and they're not just male veterans or combat related. It can stem from combat, but how they manifest are totally different. So I've seen and I've experienced that the shift has started within the VA to focus on the veteran, focus on the individual, the patient, and then having several conversations, and then kind of having a true assessment of the person. The
Yeah.
person is in front of you before you go to medications, or you go to treatment, or you go to rehab, or whatever it is that you need. But there's that genuine feel that when you go talk to these providers, that they're not automatically like already have pre-assessed you, in other words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's really important. And I don't know how it is in the civilian world. I would imagine that it's probably better in the civilian world. But that brings me to my next point of, we could have these conversations, we could have all the platforms, and that's great and everything. But we need to get we need to, people don't know, because I know that there's things out there that help, that can help, and there's people that you can reach out to, but the resources are not made available, or are readily
Yeah.
available to everyone, or they don't know, they're not aware. And I think that that's
Yeah.
important too. You mentioned that having mental health awareness, and what it all encompasses. I mean, we have to, along with just putting out the word, we also have to make sure that the resources are well funded, the resources are there, and that the resources that are available, that they that they mirror, whether it be the civilian side, or the private sector side, or even just what's going on, that they stay updated, and that way that we're not using an antiquated methodology that doesn't have any effect right now. So I think that that's also important. But with that being said, I know that. Well, first of all, I'm glad that I met you, Royce. We've had these conversations. We met one time in Frederick, and it's kind of one of those things that, here we are now. I think I consider you a good friend, and you're slowly climbing that ladder
The
of
latter.
I mean, because let's face it, relationships take time, and I don't expect I don't expect people to consider me their brother, or anything like that, until we go through things. There's that progression that we have to go, and I feel in a relationship you have to go through certain things, and only time is only going to tell. So, and I know that me and you are going to have a longevity, a friendship, and my wife knows about you. We talk all the time. He's like, I'm going to Frederick in 2 weeks, and she's like, is Royce gonna go? I'm like, no, not this time. So, but but just that being said, I'm glad that I met you. I know that you have a story. I know that you have things working in the background. And Michelle touched on it, that you dove into mental health and you're an advocate. But I want you, I want you to expand on what it is what got you into mental health, what it is that you're doing within the mental health community, and what it is that you're doing, not just for yourself, but going forward. Like what it is that is motivating you to do all this.
Man, first I wanna touch on what you and Michelle were talking about with treatment, um, and I want to say treatment and therapy. So when you think of treatment, treatment is okay. We're going to use this method to help with your symptoms. Okay. And so a method could be, let's try meditation. Let's try this prescription. Let's try um, you, as far as your thought process, let's try readjusting your thought process. And then you have therapy, and therapy is, let's work towards a root cause. Like, what is the root cause that's going on with you? And I think that as mental health professionals, we have to do the therapy first, and therapy involves building a relationship, having a clear understanding of the person that's sitting in front of you. And once you have that clear understanding of the person sitting in front of you, you have their story back to front because you have their demographics, or you have their history, you have the trauma, even stuff that comes down to their blood work, history of diabetes, all of this stuff. And then over a period of time, you get to know them. Just like you were saying, it's a natural series of progression and building a relationship. Once you have that therapeutic aspect down, then you can start with treatment. And I think a lot of therapists, like you said, when you went to go see a psychologist, and you too, Michelle, they just prescribed you something without even having a therapy. So we have to start with the therapy first, and then get to the treatment. And then what?
Yeah.
And then with the treatment, like we don't need to automatically give you a prescription of some type of drugs, because your body already produces the drugs that they're giving you. So we want to figure out some type of way, either with your thinking and whatnot, on how to get that balance. And if you're so out of whack, I mean, well, I shouldn't say that, but if you're to a point dysfunctionally, that you need medicine, then okay, cool. Let's get you on the medicine until we get those things down to a certain level, and then we'll go from, and then we can wean you off of it, off the medicine from there. But so going to how I got into mental health is crazy, because I was in Hawaii when I started the program. You know, I went to Voc Rehab in Hawaii is what I went to. I went and took a career assessment there, and then once I took that career assessment, it came out with a list of jobs, potential career options, and mental health counselor was the one. And I won't forget my voc rehab counselor, Judith. She said, "I think this is you right here. I think this is what you need to be doing." And I was like, you know what? I agree with you. And so I did some research and found Capella University, which is an online program. They have bachelor's, graduate level classes, and PhDs, and PhD level classes for mental health and psychology. So I started the program. I'm 3 years into it now, um, and I'm learning a lot. And I think that for me in my life, I've always been the type of person where people have come to me for advice, and by the grace of God, I've been able to give them sound advice, but I haven't been always practicing the sound advice. You know what I'm saying? I can give good advice, but practicing it for myself, I wasn't. It didn't always line up. So, but now I'm fortunate enough to be able to be following my own advice, and now working with the NAMI organization as a board member. Like this week is our mental health awareness week. We started off Sunday, and we kicked it off with a mental health dialogue at Tabernacle of David, which is actually the church that I grew up in, which is which is crazy. And so we had that. We had a panel discussion with some psychologists, some mental health professionals, some clinical social workers, um, a clinical practitioner nurse, and we talked about mental health. And the thing about it is, so we have this mental health dialogue at the church. We broadcast it. I don't think it was enough marketing, but that's okay. And I would say only a handful of people in there were of color. The rest were white. And the reason for that is one third of the entertainment industry is marketed and sold and bought by minorities. One third. We're responsible for one third of that market. So anytime there's a concert, anytime there's something in regards to music, I mean anything entertainment, movies, all that stuff, um, we we're on it. You know what I'm saying? And so naturally, for that type of event, um, naturally for for that type of event, um, they're not going to show up, because it's not something that's entertaining to them. So it's just creating the state of awareness and removing the stigma around mental health. Like, cause I came home from that event, my dad was like, how did it go? I mean, my parents didn't even show up for it. So, you know, I mean that's how much so, you know, this topic of mental health is just it's not attractive. So, and I'm telling him, I'm like, hey, mental health is every day, pops. And I gave him the example of driving on the freeway and someone cuts you off, and then your whole day is ruined because of that particular instance. And this is all about mental health. I mean, Michelle talked about it. She has some things that she went through in her childhood that has caused her some trauma. And if we don't talk about those things and deal with them and really process it, and that's the thing, we have to process that trauma, those situations, those events that have happened in our life. And once we are able to process it, then we can get the healing that we need and be the person that we're really called to be. So, so yeah, but yeah, I mean, and and then so Monday we had our grand opening of our first ever office here in Lansing. And we tried to get the mayor of Lansing to come out, but political people, they're always busy. You know what I'm saying? They busy, so he sent a representative. He sent a representative to do the ribbon cutting, and that's cool. It's all good. That's not going to stop the cause. So so we did that, and that was a big hoorah success. And so Friday we have this thing called um, Call to Art, and we have about 18 different pieces of art that have been submitted. We had like 82 submissions, and so we're having an auction at this place called Urban Beats, um, and it's going to be a big event, and this is all to raise awareness on mental health and mental illness. And then Saturday to cap it off, we have our 5K NAMI walk, and then that'll conclude our mental health awareness week. But I just joined the organization because I wanted to get active in our community, um, and to really make a difference. I mean, it's even to the point where now, and Michelle knows this. We started a what we call Friday night fight call, where we talk about mental health, and this is every Friday at 8 o'clock p.m. We get on the line and we just talk about mental health. We talk about addiction. We talk about um, anxiety, depression. We talk about grieving. We talk about trauma, whatever it is. And people just get on the line and they just really just address their mental health. Again, this is everyday living. This is not something that we're talking about when you get to that point of illness. And the thing about behavior is behavior can change. And that's what we want to do. We want to change the behavior because a thought becomes action, becomes a habit, and becomes permanent. And we want to get to the thought process like, why are you thinking this way? And once we get to that thought process, okay, let's start thinking about what you're thinking about. Why are you thinking about this? Okay, well, when I was a kid, someone touched me a certain way, and because someone touched you a certain way, you started having certain type of feelings and stuff like that. So and then that's why I can't really feel a certain way about this and this because of that. Yeah. So let's process this thing and then let's move forward. Okay, so now that's done. Okay, what else is going on? Well, my dad wasn't in my life. Okay, so let's deal with that. Let's process that. Okay, so and so died. Okay, let's process that and let's deal with that. So it's just everyone being aware of their own mental health, like being in the military, like you said, having PTSD or just knowing that, or just having experienced some things in the military can cause trauma. I seen a helicopter crash and guys die. I mean, I still have the images in my head. I have the images from when we got into an accident. We hit another ship. So it's being able to deal with those things and then have a certain perspective of them. making sure that that perspective is realistic, because reality is based upon what we think it is. Because you and I both can see the same thing and have two different perceptions, but which one is true?
Right.
So,
Yeah. You keep going. That's fine.
uh, but yeah, man. So I'm really just working on this thing. I mean, I'm in the schools. I mean, I was in the schools Monday and Tuesday this past week, and bro, man, our youth really need help. Um, so on Monday, I went in and I was talking to a kid. Man, I mean, this kid could not sit down. I mean, he just could not sit down. He was just like he had an abundance of energy, and so, and one thing we have to think about, and as practitioners, we have to think about, kids are supposed to have energy because they're growing. That's
Right.
their hormones and things like that. But we want to label them ADHD. No, that kid just got a little extra energy. All right. So, and what I did with this kid was, I was like, man, so what do you like to do? We sat there and talked. Well, I like to do this. I play this. I play was, he didn't want to listen to the teacher. And I said, well, I said, man, part of learning is following instructions. And then I motioned to him. I said, you see this haircut that you have? Now, this haircut, the barber had to follow instructions. Otherwise, your haircut would be jacked up. So he was like, yeah, that's right. I said, well, that's the same thing with you in school. You have to follow instructions in order to get the job done, in order to learn. So we're just talking about it, and then again, this kid is just still. He has a lot of energy. So I said, okay, so what else? What other sports do you like to do? He said, well, I want to play football. I want to play basketball and everything. And then he goes on to say, like in football, I've done 100 push-ups. I said, oh, really? 100 push-ups? Wow. I said, okay. Well, how many push-ups can you do right now? I could probably do 50. And so I said, okay, well, won't you, you know, let's just try five right now. Let's just try five push-ups. So he gets down and um he's just he's trying to do the push-ups. He got his butt all in the air. I'm talking about like he doing the centipede like that, you know. And I'm steady talking to the kid at the same time, and I'm telling him like you see, when you're doing this exercise, when you're doing this, it takes focus to do that. It takes attention to do that. It takes your energy to do that. And this is the same thing in the classroom. So I said, okay, so get up, because he was doing them all wrong. He wasn't doing proper push-ups. He was just like bobbing his head and stuff. And so I said, okay, watch me. And so he watched me. I said, this is how you do a proper push-up. And so I showed him. I did, elbows locked, and then back down and back up and everything. And so I said, okay, so this is how I want you to do a push up. I said, but first, this is what I want you to do. I want you to have good posture. And again, I said, this is going to take some concentration. So I know you can do that. So I just had him just stand straight up, or not stand straight up, but um, be on his toes and hands and just keep that posture right there. And then I said, okay, now you can do five push ups. And so after that, this kid was able to sit down, he was able to chill out and relax. And even afterwards, the kid thanked me. So
Wow.
those are the type of things that we deal with, man, on a daily basis. And then the next day, in another class, I'm in a classroom with some kids, man. And so the first classroom, these kids are watching The Mask of Zorro, with Antonio Banderas and what was it? Not Angelina, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Mm-hmm.
She was in it, and so they're watching it, but these mugs is falling asleep. I said, "How can you fall asleep watching Zorro? This is the easiest." And then and they have a sheet in front of them, right? They have a sheet in front of them, and it's got columns in it. Okay, you have character, you have the role, and what's going on with him. I'm like, wow, this is so easy. how come these kids can't do it? And there's a girl sitting next to me. I'm like, so you're not gonna do it? She's like, no. Their attention span is just like all off into something else. And so there's a kid in front of me, and he keeps, he's nodding his head, falling asleep. So I just touch him. I say, hey man, wake up, wake up. And then I said, if I gotta tell you to get up one more time, I'm gonna tell you to stand up. And so that class ends and everything, and I talk to the teacher, and then I go into another class. And this class is a bunch of rowdy young men, rowdy young men. And so, and it was a substitute teacher. And so, you know what happens with a substitute teacher?
Right.
They really act stupid. They're really
Yeah.
gonna act stupid. So, um, so the assistant principal, he says, yeah, can you go in there and just check on them for me? So I'll go in there. I just sit through the whole thing. And so I'm talking to these kids, man, and I got my shirt on. They're like, "Are you a coach? Who are you?" I said, "Well, no, Coach Bogan sent me in here." I said, "I'm just somebody who cares, man." And so the substitute teacher, she's calling out, she's doing roll call on the names and everything, and they're steady talking, and their language is just foul. I mean, like they speak in Spanish, bruh. I mean, they cussing like sailors.
Right.
Real. I mean, they cussing and nigga this and that. Nah, nah, nah. I'm like, wow, this is how y'all talk for real in front of the teacher, and she don't even say nothing. She just busy trying to take roll call and everything. I'm like, wow, this is disrespectful. So I intervene. I say, hey man, what I want y'all to do is be quiet so that everyone can hear their name being called and they can say present. So they're quiet. And then they got their phones out, because it's the digital age, bruh. It's the digital age. And they just can't be without their phones. And so I'm telling all of them, I'm like, put your phone up, put your phone up, put your phone up, put your phone up, And so that gets going, and then they have some reading to do, and then an in-class assignment, because I guess they don't take homework home. They don't have homework anymore, which is crazy to me. I mean, I'm like, this is really cake. You go to high school and you don't have homework. You do all your work in class. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, we are raising a bunch of kids that have no type of discipline, bro. It's crazy. So they had to read some paragraphs, and then they have to do some paper. I mean, they have questions right there. I'm like, man, can y'all do this? And I mean, their attention span again, it's just mediocre. And then I said, at that, man, listen, you can even copy off the person next to you. You know what I'm saying? And she's willing to, like, okay, well, so and so, you can help this person with theirs. I'm like, wow, this is just crazy. So that ends, and the bell rings, and I go in the hallway, and I'm just chilling out there, and then here we go, an altercation, potential altercation between two girls, and I'm standing right there, no security, nobody. And so I'm taking one girl and I'm walking her down. I'm like, hey, listen, you don't have to do this. You didn't come to school to fight. You came here to learn. But she talking this and that and blah 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 blah. And so I walk her all the way down to the other side of the school on the same hallway, but to the other side. And then I walk back, and then I'm just standing there, and then I see a security guard there, and so he's standing there. I said, hey man, you just missed it. There was about to be a fight. And he was like, well, who? And so I'm not pointing out the girl, but I'm like, this one right here, this little nappy head girl right here. And then I'm like, so, and then lo and behold, the girl that I just escorted down with her boyfriend, she walking back. I said, hey, bro. So this redhead girl right here, it's about to go down, bro. I'm telling you right now, it's about to go down. So, so he's, she's walking up, and then it goes down. It goes down. So I'm holding back three of these other girls that's trying to get at this other one girl, and it's like, and all hell is breaking loose. And so it's like code 10, code 10, code 10. It's a fight. It's a fight. It's a fight. And so we got security guards, we got teachers coming, and it's all this stuff going on. And so we finally get it broken up, and we put one security guard takes these two other girls down in another area, and then we got one in another room. And so come to find out, man, these teenagers, man, they have a private Facebook group, and this is how a lot of cyberbullying and a lot of stuff gets started is on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all that other stuff. So they have been talking trash because these teenagers have a private group where they post videos, bro. Where they post videos and all kind of other stuff. So somehow, some way, somebody had posted some stuff, man, and it got out, and that's why they were, yeah, bro. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so I'm talking to this little girl, and she's being real transparent with me about a lot of stuff. But the fact, so long story short, man, these kids are going through so much stuff at home that you have no idea of, and especially in communities in areas where it's low income, because you have mothers or you have babies having babies.
Right.
Babies having babies, man. And so, man, we just got to be more aware. We got to really, um, get, I mean, make an impact where we can as far as mental health, in our houses, in our community. However, man, because I can't reach everybody. Michelle can't reach everybody. You can't reach everybody. But we can still spread that word, bro. So.
Yeah, and that's one thing that me and anybody that's really around me or whatnot. I mean, yeah, we know that's. I think that's kind of like the issue that we have. Is that you all right? Oh,
Yeah, I'm just waving, man. I'm just being silly, bro.
No, it's just one of those things that yeah, man, I mean, getting the word out, getting all that stuff out, but it's like how far the reach that we're gonna have, we really don't know. But I mean, we still have to try, because just like how you said, I mean, yeah, we do have to reach out and everything, but out of 100 people, our message, we may not necessarily reach. Our goal is to reach all 100. Obviously, I mean that should be always the goal. But we know, in practical terms, it's going to just probably be like maybe 1 out of 100 that are going to listen. But maybe that one person is the one that can make the change, make the difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, in a perfect world, we want everybody that needs the help, that needs the assistance, and this doesn't just goes. It doesn't just pertain just to mental health. I mean, if you need assistance in anything, whether it be financial assistance, medical assistance, or anything like that, if you have any medical issues, go and reach out, get the help that you need, and that just goes in all aspects. Whether it is having issues learning, having trying to progress in your career or all that stuff. I mean, there's people out there that you probably never even thought of, or that can probably help you and put you. If they can't help you, they'll at least put you on the good path that you need to be on or whatnot.
That's right.
But I mean, just having said that, I mean, one, I'm glad that you introduced me to NAMI. I'm glad that you guys are doing all the work that you're doing. And obviously, I follow you on Instagram. I mean, we're in the same career field, probably for right now. I know that eventually you're gonna get into the mental health field, which is good because for me, you're just gonna be another reference that's gonna keep me updated on certain things. Because again, I may not always catch everything. I may not always see everything. But at least I know you're from the stuff that you post on social media. There's things that you're just gonna be able to keep me updated on. And I know some of our listeners are in that mental health field, different capacities, but they still in that field. And we have actually a doctor that actually listens to this podcast. And half the time that when we're joking and all that stuff, he probably was like pulling his hairs or whatnot. But the other times that we get serious with mental health and behavioral health, and just helping out, then he appreciates that. So, I mean, like I said, I mean, anything that we can do or whatnot, but anything else that you guys want to talk about, mention, bring up before I start playing some videos from NAMI or whatnot?
Man, I'll just talk about not just mental health but emotional health. So I think we we put an emphasis on education, um, and that's cool and everything, but your emotional health is what matters more. Your emotional and your mental and emotional health. And I just want people to be really mindful of their emotions. Like if your son does something right, and that's not something that you like listen, okay, don't do that no more, right? And then he does it again, and you feel yourself about to hit that peak where you about to go upside his head or something like that, that you're mindful of your emotions and you say, okay, let me stop, because there's a reason for everything, right? And so you want to take that step and say, okay, why is he really doing this? Why is he pressing my buttons? And ask those questions. Same thing with our relationships, man. We want to really ask questions about why people are doing things versus just automatically thinking one thing or another. So knowing when to have emotions and how much emotions to exert for a certain thing, like you know, for an emergency situation, yes, your adrenaline, everything like that, that's gonna go up. But do you need that? When you're driving, no, you don't need that much. You don't need that adrenaline. So it's just being mindful of that, and then knowing that if you feel like you have um, built up emotions, then you might want to maybe start some meditation, maybe work out some more, um, maybe take a vacation, maybe, maybe have some sex or something. If you're married,
Right.
you know, something like that. But just be real mindful of your emotions, man, because those things, they can get the best of us. We can definitely. I mean, but we're emotional people, and men and women. I'm not just talking about women, but I'm talking about men too. We are emotional. We can get in our feelings too, just like women can. We can, and we have to admit that to them. Yeah, hey, you know what, babe? I might need a hug right now. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Now,
I might,
hey,
I might.
I'm glad you brought that up because
Yeah, bro.
I've been in my feelings these last couple of days, especially I just turned 35, right? So I
Okay.
just turned 35 October 8th, and
Happy belated birthday.
thanks, man. So like, it's been one of those things that I'm good, right? You know what I mean? Like I think I'm stable, this and that. But there's things that are happening in my life right now that are still. It's kind of you're seeing it for the second time. You're like, I'll be all right. You know what I mean? But you know, I'm experiencing it again, and I'm like, it's still special to me. It still
Hmm.
it gets me in my feelings, and
Hmm.
I was watching a show with my wife a couple weeks ago. Or we watched The Good Doctor, right? And we watched it
Hmm.
together, and The Good Doctor on ABC is pretty good, and
Hmm.
and there's they happen to lose a patient on this episode, and
Hmm.
but the music, the acting, the dramatic effect, I was like, whoa, man, like I had tears coming down my eyes. So,
Mm.
and
Okay.
she knows me. I'm not one to cry, to shed tears for anything. I mean, according to her, I'm a hard ass,
Mm.
but
Wow.
so she's like, "Are you all right?" And then a couple of days after that, and then my birthday's getting closer or whatnot, and um, with some of the things that are happening, I got into my feeling. I wanted to reach out to my boy, because there's some things that I wanted to say because I was like, yo, I was getting choked up about like silly stuff,
Mm.
and I told my wife, I
Mm.
was like, she's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, it's just. She's like, you've been like real. I mean, she was playing around. She was like, yo, you getting soft on me, bro. Like, what's happening with you? And I know she was just joking, you know. But she's like, because I was like, yo, I'm gonna go talk to my doctor. I'm trying to get on these hormones, get on steroids or something, you know what I mean? But she was like, nah, it's just you're a parent now. It's that you're experiencing different things as a parent now. So you add that extra layer now, and you know, and it's true because the things that I have experienced now, obviously, if you would have told me at 18, like I'd be like, I would have brushed you off, But now that I'm a parent, there's certain things kind of hit me differently. Like I try not to watch news, local news or national news, especially when they involve children. When you hear kids being left in the vehicle, parents driving their vehicles with the kids in it over a cliff or into a lake or body of water.
Yeah.
But yet they don't go with the kids. I'm like, what did you do? Whatever. So I avoid that because those type of things affect me. How I talk to my kid and what tone and my posture really does affect me because if I remember the one time, and I don't know if I shared this with you, the one time that I did put hands on him, and it was like I just spanked him on his butt cheek, and and to him, like he cried. He was like just I think it's like 1.5, and I just spanked him on his butt cheek, right, to get him to calm down and get him dressed. But then, but I was gonna raise my hand just to like, I don't know what. I was picked because we have a shelf or a changing table, and I was gonna grab. I was reaching up my hand to grab the baby powder, and I just saw him just kind of like bring his little arms up to kind of guard himself. And that really affected me. So ever since then, I've been real cautious about, like, not necessarily what actions I do, but just the posture that I take. You know what I mean? Because I don't want him, and I don't want to make him soft or nothing. But I know that dealing with it, like the way I dealt with it when I was younger, is not the same for him. And I don't want him to be afraid of me. I want him to be. I don't want him to just feel pain when he does something wrong. In other words, I want him to kind of talk through it all. And that's just for me. That's one thing I didn't know how. I didn't know that I was gonna be like that as a father. I didn't know I was gonna do that. So I'm glad that you mentioned it, but I'm also glad that I'm like the way I thought I was gonna be. Because I do believe in spanking. I do believe in because that's how I was raised. But like I told my mom, it's like, that's not how I want to do it, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so, man, and when you say that, and you talk about, in the joking manner, your wife was saying you're getting soft on me, I want you to and I want every man to just remove what they perceive a man should be, because society tells you that a man shouldn't cry. Society tells you that a man shouldn't have this certain level of emotion. A man shouldn't do this. A man shouldn't do that. That's all false. I mean, because we're all. I mean, if you think about how God created us, He created woman from man. So man was the first one to have emotions. If you think about it, man was the first one to have emotions, and He gave some of His emotions to women, and men still have emotions. But how you raise your son and how you feel about certain things is how you feel. And be comfortable with that. That makes you no less of a man. What makes you a man is being able to express your feelings in a way that is healthy.
Right.
And whatever that looks like for you, as long as it's not beating nobody up or anything like that, and your wife is cool with it, your son is cool with it, your family's cool with it, then who cares what everyone else says, man. But yeah, we got to erase that. That's like another stigma or stereotype that men shouldn't cry, men shouldn't do this. No, a man has feelings just like everybody else.
Right. Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like she was. I mean, she was poking fun, but it just she knows the type of person I am. I don't even on an emotional thing. Like I'm not even gonna cry. So she was like, "Whoa!" So she's noticing already. We've been together for a long time, so she's gonna know me better than I know myself. So she's already starting to know that there's that chemical there's not just that physical change that's occurring, obviously, and the environmental change as well that's already occurred with being a parent and being having a child in the home. But there's also that chemical change within my body. That's because that's what it is. I mean, you start getting into hormones changes and emotional change, like hormone. The way your hormones are can affect your emotions as well. They impact it. Now they may not be fully, but she sees that. So for me, it's like, you know, like, but I've also gotten comfortable of being able to cry when I need to cry, being able to, you know, whether it be with my mom, my sister, my friend, my wife, or whatnot. I know that they might poke fun, but at the same time, I know they're gonna be serious. Like, if you know,
I remember that time you cried with me. You don't remember that?
yeah. Yeah.
No, just
No, but I mean, it's bound to happen. I mean, you never know. But we haven't heard. Michelle's been kind of quiet here lately. I know she's driving around,
she was driving.
but what you know, what kind of comments do you have about that, or anything that we've said? Yeah, you gotta unmute us.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, now we can.
Okay. No, I think it's great. I mean, just to get a man's perspective too. I mean, I know Royce and I talk a lot about, you know, being able to be yourself in a relationship, be vulnerable, and to really have that connection is super important. I know, just listening to, you know, the things that collectively people, like, as far as like learning more about mental health and stuff like that, has really helped me understand, you know, tremendously more about, you know, that we all go through it. And it's just what type of struggles are you going in? Because I think that too many times, so many things are written across our heart, you know, too many labels. And I think we just got to get that stigma off, get those labels off, and really know that there's more than just, you know, there's, you know, changing the way you think, changing what you eat, working out, you know, spending time with you, having boundaries, having healthy time, not, you know, because men, I mean, I see a lot of, you know, pressures and responsibilities that they have to take on. And, you know, whether it's caring for a family and a child and, you know, providing and stuff like that, there's a lot of things that contribute to, you know, a lot of things as far as what people go through. But really, it's been an eye opening for me. And I know one of the things that Royce and I did was an assessment to kind of communicate on how we some of the things that are good to say, some of the things that are not good to say, and starting to learn more about how we respond and stuff like that. And it's just, um, you know, it's just helps for healthy conflict and just, communication and stuff like that. So this is, I mean, when you say mental health, there are so many levels of mental health. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if you had a series on this could go on for a long time.
Oh, you know, I mean, like I said, I mean, we preface it with this is just this was like really a spontaneous episode or recording.
It's amazing.
You never really know how it's gonna go, but one of the things that we've I think we've all kind of touched on it or mentioned it is, you know, the stigma with, you know, there's different and also there's different things. Mental health is kind of like that broad term, right? But within mental health, there's so many things are involved as well. It's not just like, oh, just talking or just treatment or medication or whatnot. But one of the things that I wanted to share too is because you guys mentioned that as well, and it just, you know, prompted that thought in my mind. It was the moment that I realized that, or the moment that I came to grips with is when I wanted to get help is also that, and I want to shed some light into this, is the fact that you're going to make yourself vulnerable and you have to be okay. And I think this is part of seeking treatment and this is something that we have to change as well, is the mentality. Once you decide to get help, the mentality that needs to shift just before you get assistance, because you have to know that it's going to get you vulnerable, and you have to be comfortable and you have to be okay with
Yeah.
you're going to open you're going to open that door, you're going to open that box, you're going to open that closet,
Yeah,
and
Pandora's box is about to be opened.
it's going to be open. And it's and I think a lot of people, all this awareness stuff is good, this and that, removing the stigma. But for me, I think it was real important to it's real important to also focus and change that moment before you actually get the help, because when once it's open, once you're vulnerable, it's gonna be hard to put that away. It's kind of one of those things. It's like, you get all this knowledge, or if you tell me something, especially like if it's something bad, I can no longer ignore it because now you told me. Like if you rob somebody or you rape somebody and you're a really good friend of mine, like I cannot undo or unhear what you just told me. You know what I'm saying? So, and the same approach has to be taken with mental health and anything else that's gonna keep you open. Is you also have to be comfortable and have to be sensitive to the fact that to people are going to they're going to have an issue with that as well, because some people just they may just open themselves up and think that they could just close that door. But no, that's not how it works. That can also be damaging as well. And for me, that I was comfortable with that. I was comfortable with opening up with my wife. I was comfortable with opening up to my friends and family, close ones, and even at work. Believe it or not, like my coworkers. Well, they don't know everything, but they know up to a point that I'm comfortable with them knowing, so that if I have to take an extra break or if I have to work from home or whatever, so my coworkers know. But that also puts me in a point that I may get passed over for a promotion, or because of that stigma that's like, oh well, he may not be.
But that shouldn't be though.
It shouldn't be.
No.
It shouldn't be.
Shouldn't
But
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 then,
I made it a point that for me it was more important for me to make sure that I was okay and that I was good.
yeah,
Luckily, we're I'm fortunate enough that I'm not chasing the money just yet. But for me, self-care was more important than a promotion or whatnot, because one of the things that, especially in the workplace, or if your friends, your family, your coworkers don't know what's going on, they can't help, or they can't not get the help for you. You know what I'm saying? So for
yeah,
me, I made the conscious choice of not only opening up myself to treatment and to help. I also open it up to creating my close inner circle and my outer circle and all that stuff. Like when I met you, Royce, I mean, I talked to you about it like right off the bat, because for
yeah,
me it's important. If the people around me know what they're dealing with, I don't want them to see like, oh well, we didn't see that from Frank, or what's wrong with Frank. It's, well, being able to understand what's going on with your friend can also, can also help your loved ones. They don't have to know what's going on, but if they can understand, that makes it a lot easier on them to carry that burden. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Well, you can't do life alone.
Right.
Point blank. Period. You need
Oh,
someone to process stuff with.
all right.
You need someone that you can say, hey, you know what, man, I'm going. And even if it's just one or two people, I mean, that in and of itself is so amazing. And that's what, a lot of people are afraid to be judged. If I say this, then it's going to go on my medical record. If I say this, and if they give me medicine and whatever it may be. But see, that the thing is that I, in my job, I'm a real estate broker and a trainer here for a large firm. And I'll give you an example, is that one of the areas of mental health that a lot of people had, they were losing their homes. 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, and nobody could come out of that, spirit of fear and rejection and be able to come and get help. So what happened? They lost their homes.
Yeah,
But because I experienced something similar, and I reflect back and go, wow, It was it was a lot of hardship. I can tell you that much. It was a ton of hardship, but it was short term. And that hardship I turned into a very well-paying job to be able to help people and identify with them. So I held little small meetings and said, "Hey, it's a help for homeowners seminar. If you're going through it, if you need some help, come." And I sat with them one-on-one,
Mm-hmm.
and they told me what it's almost like diagnosing them, right? Okay, so here's a diagnosis. Here's what we got to do. The prescription is this. So they did those things, and guess what? They stayed in their homes.
Yeah.
Some of them didn't want to stay in their homes, and some of them got massive relocation incentives because that's what the government was offering, and or somebody sold their home and made a whole bunch of money. But I was there to help. That's kind of it's there's no difference between being there for them because nobody knew what to say, who to say it to, how to say it to, who would listen. Just like this Kavanaugh thing with the judge and the person who said something, and now it's this all these women are coming forward and saying me too, me too, me too, me too, me too, the Me Too move. You know, and the thing is, what Taylor Swift just said, she had an incident, but if someone didn't believe in her, and the judge didn't, you know, let's just say that everything worked out well, and the person that did whatever to her is where they need to be. You know, nothing will change unless the people who have been through it. I mean, because until you've been a statistic, honestly, you don't know how truly to have a conversation unless you're in that level of, you know, care with it being a doctor or someone who knows. Because I don't know the technical terms like Royce does, but I do know the seasons that I've been through, my pain. You know, you can literally take time out of your day and talk to someone like Royce and you, that it stays there, and you'd be surprised. I'm just going to say it. There's power in prayer, and there's a lot of things that can change. And I think by getting connected to the right person, someone you trust, that you can confide in, that
Right.
you know won't take that anywhere. Oh my goodness! And having an outlet to process life, it's invaluable. So for me, it's like using the Help for Homeowners seminar. You know, I became a consumer advocate for the state. I was able to help Hawaii's homeowners come out of some mess. And for me, that was like, wow, because I saved my house from foreclosure. And I learned how to write policy, do a loan modification. I mean, stuff that I never thought in a million years I could do. People with master's degrees couldn't even figure this stuff out. But I went through it to
But you
help
did,
somebody else
Shell.
through it. Right. And that's the thing is that and that's the thing. What I'm saying is that whoever's going through what we're going through, I mean, they got to come forward and use their gifting and say, you know what, I'm called to this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to help someone in this area. And I think that when something is easy and natural and it comes to you, that's when people trust you because you've been through it.
Right.
You know, and it's about helping people.
Right, and being able to identify and connect with people on that level, that's pretty good because, you know, like I said, I mean, when I started this journey, it wasn't, and I know this is not going to be a short term. I know this is it's going to be a lifelong journey for me or whatnot. But even then, when I started this, I was also in the reserves, and so my focus has always been, you know, I've been a sergeant in the Army, so I've been in a leadership role for the better part of my career or whatnot. And we've always preached, and Royce can attest to this too. Like even in the military, you always like leaders lead, and there's always information, there's always resources, and you're putting out all this great stuff, but then we still hear about service members being committing suicide. We hear about rape having.
That breaks my heart.
We hear about rapes having abuse. We hear about all this stuff, but at the same time, it's like we are not practicing what we're preaching. At least that's the mentality that I had, or feeling. So when I realized that I came to this crossroad, that I was like, yo, this is what I'm dealing with, and I made it to a point that I know I'm not going to change everything. I'm just one person, but I know that what I do, I can speak on, and I could pass it on to some of my younger soldiers, and letting them know, hey, this is what your leaders, one of your leaders, your mid-level leader, is dealing with, and if I can do it, and I can make myself that vulnerable, it shouldn't be limited to me. You can reach out and get the help that you need too. So for me, you know, being open, creating my network, having that person that I can confide with, I don't have just one person. I have, even my wife's, my in-laws, all of them know. My nephews know. My mom knows. Coworker know.
Good.
If I have a plethora of people that I can reach out to, but there's a reason, and I don't always need them to give me advice. I don't always need them to provide feedback or anything. Sometimes I just need to carry on a casual conversation. Sometimes I just need them to listen. Sometimes I just need to be quiet and let them talk to me about their stuff. Sometimes I just need to hear people. You know what I mean? So it's not always. So for me, it's always been about obviously bettering myself, but it's also like what I do or how I go about this can someone else can see that and use it as an example. I know 2 other service members that that were underneath that were in my chain of command and that I oversaw was, I know one of them got out and he reached out to me in a private text message and said, "Hey, I'm dealing with this and that." I didn't have all the answers. I was still going through the journey, and I was like, "Hey, listen, I was clear. I was like, I don't know what it is that you need, but I can tell you what I'm going through, and these are the resources that I use to help me out.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and if and you have to take the initiative on that, and if you need some help, I'm here with you. But until you have to do it, but I'm here for you, this and that. So, but it also, it's only one person that I know of, or 2 people that they took my example, and it helped them at least start to take the steps to reaching
that's
out.
all that you need, man. I mean, you can only do what you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you said they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, you being the example, and them being able to see the example, and you being able to tell them, then it's up to them to take you from there. And that's what it is in treatment,
Right.
treatment and therapy. People go there, but it's. I mean, the therapist is only there to help you figure this thing out. Because I mean, essentially, man, we have all the answers. Like we have the answers. It's just that it's clouded. It's like a foggy mirror, right? So you gotta wipe the fog from the mirror so you can really see what's really going on. So and as soon as you do that, then you'll see things a lot clearer. It just takes some assistance, man.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, the conversation's got to keep on going, and hopefully, we can carry that conversation and move it forward. But even you touched about Kavanaugh. I know that's been kind of like a touchy subject for certain people, depending on where your political, where in the political spectrum you stand on. We're here in the Nicaraguan podcast. We're not shy about it. We are not. We are not necessarily Democratic, but we're not necessarily Republican. So it was fall in the middle. But in this event, that rape allegations or rape accusations, A, don't do them, and then B, we're not going to advocate, any form of that stuff here. But at the same time, it's like we know it happens, we know it occurs, and we have to provide, just like with mental health, we have to provide the platform or the comfort level for people to speak up, because I hate to put the comparisons, but the reality it is, you're not gonna, just like how you mentioned it may just take one person to talk and present their story before the floodgates open. And the same thing with mental health. Sometimes it just takes one person to talk about it, and then now all of a sudden celebrities get on board, other people start talking about it, and the same thing with sexual assault accusations, rape allegations, all that stuff. They may be quiet because A, they're still processing what happened to them, even if it is 30, 40, 50 years after the fact, but they're also dealing with it, or they've already dealt with it and they don't want to revisit it. But now, and one of the things now is, with mental health and accusations is you have to have proof. People always want proof. And in the days that, in this modern day that we all live in, it's show me the proof. And it's like with mental health, you can't really see the scars. You can't see the wounds unless I peel back the layers and let you in. And with rape accusation, whether it's sexual assault, harassment, whether it be male, female, whatever it is, you know, some of that stuff, it's on the beholder they're carrying the burden of proof. And for them to, sometimes it can be difficult. And one of the things that I really hate, and I'm sorry that if I offend anybody, it's Melania decided to come out and say that, and it only could be a snippet, but she's basically out there with a quote saying that rape victims or accused victims of all this stuff need to have proof before they can say something. And I'm like, I understood what you were trying to say, but at the same time, you're telling them to be quiet unless they could prove it. And sometimes you're not going to be able to prove it. You know, we opened up this podcast, this episode with, there's an inferiority of women. There's a perception of inferiority from men that women are perceived to be. You mentioned that in the beginning that there's a we would keep using the word stigma, but there's a perception of women being beneath men, being lower than men, and that they have to deal with things and carry on. But that's not the correct thing. 30, 40 years ago, we weren't talking about rape or allegations and this and that. But we are in the Me Too movement. We are in that moment now. We know of people. I know of my wife, close family members, friends that have either been victims or know someone that's dealt with this. So for me, the gap between those type of accusations or those types of actions, there is a connection, you know. So, and you're right though, the proximity of that event or that action or whatever can, however close you are, can affect you a little bit more, and then you may start feeling a certain way about it. Like, I know a lot of people don't really talk about mental health before I became open, but then all of a sudden, everybody else came out of the woodwork and started talking, and I'm seeing it on TV. I'm seeing it, I'm listening it on podcasts. I got friends of mine that are more on it. Social media, they're talking about it, and hopefully, you know, we could see that with the Me Too movement. And I don't want women to be quiet. I don't want men to stay quiet. And you know, so for Melania Trump to come out and say that, oh, don't say anything unless you can prove it. To me, that's, you're just telling him shut up and go about it. And that's really dangerous and hurtful. And then for the president 45 to come out and when they were going to swear in Kavanaugh, he wanted to open up to apologize to Brett Kavanaugh and his family for what they quote unquote been through. But the reality is that he put himself in that position. And I'm not here to say, hey, you know, judge me for what I did in high school. But I was in high school. I didn't rape. I went to parties. I didn't do anything. Even to this day, if my wife doesn't, I'm married, and I've been with my wife since 2005. And if my wife does not want me to touch her, or if I'm touching her and she says I don't like it, or I'm patting her on her back, she doesn't like it, I stop. And like I told my friend on a messenger, I was like, hey, listen, I don't understand that. I don't understand how people can do this stuff. You know, if my wife says it ain't happening, it ain't happening. Yeah. Like, it's just that. So for our the head figure of the United States to apologize to him and his wife and his children for what they just been through. What about what he put other women through? You know what I mean? What about them? If you're apologizing to him, that means that you're condoning his behavior. You know, you can't have it both ways. And that's what I saw with this whole Brett Kavanaugh thing. I saw it both ways. Yeah, they were being apologetic to Dr. Ford, but then they're also being apologetic to Brett Kavanaugh for what he's been going through. And I'm like, you can't have it both ways. It's either one or the other. But just like with mental health, just kind of reeling it back in,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that, like, you can't. And that's one thing too. Is the stigma again? Is once I open myself up, hopefully the backlash of like, oh well, you're a pussy, you're soft, you're a man, suck it up. You're going to get some of that stuff, but hopefully that stops with, if the more we push this conversation forward and make everybody aware of that. Because I'll tell you what, me and my wife, we were good. She always understood what I was dealing with, this and that, but she didn't really understood how it impacted me or how it affected me until, and she's okay with me sharing this story, until she lost her first patient. She's a nurse practitioner now, but she was an RN at the floor at the hospital, and she lost her first patient. She didn't realize that how it was going to affect her. She lost her first patient, this and that. She cried. She came home. She cried. She thought it was, that was it. We wake up, go to bed, wake up the next day, and I go to work, and she goes to work too. She's starting her 12-hour shift, and luckily she's working in the morning, and I get a phone call like around like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, why is my wife calling me this early? I was like, all right. I was like, hey, what's up? She's like, and she's calling me. She's crying. She's bawling. I was like, what was like, are you all right? This and that. She's like, no, yeah, I'm in the bathroom right now. Everything is spinning. I'm crying. I can't do this. I'm like, what happened? Well, turns out that when she went on shift, this and that, but she didn't know. So she, when she passed by the door where the patient had passed away, she froze. Like she froze. She stopped. She couldn't take any further steps. She couldn't even pass by the door, man, before she broke down. And like it really debilitated her to the point that she was crying. I was like, okay, what you need to do is you need to go and get a supervisor. Let them know what's going on, because you may be the first one right now that's presenting the symptoms, but I'm guaranteeing you there's other people that are dealing with this, and they don't know how they're going to deal with it. And so please do me a favor, go talk to your supervisor, let them know what's going on, and that way they can start assisting you, because if you can't do your job, you're going to potentially be able harm another patient, and you don't want that. And so I took the day off. I told my boss what was going on. I took the day off, and surely, as soon as her supervisor knew, they took action. They started bringing everybody else on shift. They talked. They had like a group therapy, making sure they give them like 3 days of like extended leave or whatever. That way everybody can just kind of get into their emotion, and they extended they said, look, yes, you're on leave, but also if you need the assistance, we have, in the community, we have these therapists that you can go see by yourself or in group sessions or whatnot. But turns out that she was the only one that said something, but then there was like other people that were on shift that were helping during the code that were being affected, just didn't know how to what's the word I'm looking for? How to cope with those emotions. But so when I got home, she was like, "This is what you go through." I'm like, "Yeah." See, it's difficult to explain to somebody that
unless you experience it,
right? So for me now, since that moment, I mean, I'm not glad that it happened, but I'm glad that it did in a way, because I don't have to explain myself to her as much anymore. And then, by her sharing that story with other people, even our friends and family, they can start to relate a little bit. Therefore, like if I tell them like, hey, I need to turn back around. I can't go to this football game, or I can't go to this game. My wife is like, no, that's fine. Let's turn around. Let's, it's all good. Or, hey, I don't really need to. I don't want to be around people right now. Let's just cancel the party or whatever, the get together. So she understands that now, And so she cried too, because she was like, this is what you go through. And I'm like, yeah, imagine. And I'm only like, just like on the lower tier. There's people out here
Yeah.
that deal with this on like
Extreme.
extreme levels.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, again, like, you know, even though she joked and poked fun at, from that moment on, you mentioned it too, Michelle. It's like, until they happen or become either they're personally affected or they know somebody close to them has been affected. That's when real change. Unfortunately, that's when things are going to start changing more rapidly. So that being said, hopefully, with the Me Too movement, hopefully we don't wait until. Hopefully we don't have to wait until rape happens before we can start changing it, and with mental health and behavioral health. Hopefully we don't have to wait until someone goes through it or does something crazy, or well, that's problematic, but does something out of the norm, that can ultimately like harm and hurt other people, and for them to start getting help. Let's do it beforehand. Let's try to stop it and
Well,
push
and
that
that's the
conversation
thing.
forward.
You might have done something a long time ago. I'm not trying to point the fingers at anybody, but eventually it's going to resurface.
Yeah.
And are you ready to have those hard conversations? Are you ready? Will you be ready? Because just because you think that because it's 20 years later doesn't mean that it could not resurface again someday. And I think that's what's happening, is because where we're at with all this new information and new opportunities to be able to talk and discuss about things, well, it's almost like we compartmentalize and we tuck things away, we park them in the shelf, if you will, in your brain. And then it's like, wait a minute, and people start to remember things, and then you know and then they start to resurface. And then, I mean, look at some of the people. I mean, I have to go to work in a second here, but I just wanted to share that there are like some people, like famous people that we know, like are, being brought up on charges for this and that, for something that was done years ago. So it
Right.
doesn't go away just because you think you got away with it, in a sense. But and I just think you got to clear out the closet. You gotta just go in there and deal with the things, and yeah,
That's right.
You got to be
and
comfortable
learn
with
how
that.
to deal with things and
Yeah.
not suppress them with alcohol, with relationships, with medication, with prescription. Because honestly, you reach a point where your willpower runs out, and you're at the end of yourself, and it's just like, where do you turn to?
Right.
And thank goodness, because now, like, Friday night fights, it might be something super new, but it's a place where people can come together and process certain things. You don't even have to say who you are. You could share whatever you wanted to, and it's like a safe place, and there's like professionals on the line. And I just think it's really neat that if more people take this platform and help people out, I really truly feel that, number one, we could make a huge impact in that community.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean,
My
you
brother,
know
man.
yeah, I can go on and
Uh,
on, but I'll let you know one thing. I'm just grateful for this too. I think timing is everything, and it's been about an hour and a half on this call, and today is one of the busiest days that I have. And I just press the pause button for a little bit, because everything else can wait. There's nothing pressing, but to be able to really know that, number one, with your podcast, I think this is incredible because it gets the word out to something so powerful. And and I can only imagine, like, whoever is listening, I think it's wonderful that one person can make a difference in the world by just one of the things that they're doing, whether they're podcasting it or being a practitioner or someone who's went through it, or someone who's going to tune in on your next podcast and chime in on something that resonated with them, that's going to help somebody else go, you know what, man, I'm going through the same thing. Let me jump on this and let me ask some questions, or however that is. And that's the part we play. That's how, I might sing it. I mean, I remember one time that before I started singing in church, I used to I used to sing in, bars and do karaoke and all that kind of stuff. And I remember one time I opened up for Earth, Wind, and Fire. It was in New Orleans, and it was the most phenomenal thing that I could ever do in my entire life, I thought at that time. But I was so afraid to do it. The fear in and of itself was like debilitating, but I did it. But I realized that when you get a gift, there's so much more you need to do with it as you cultivate it, as you use it to help others. And I write through my pain. Some people might do poetry. Some people might do podcasts. Some people might do posts and stuff like that. So I just think it's beautiful to see people coming together and using their pain to push forward to help other people out. And I think once people realize it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to share your story. I mean, quite honestly, they're not alone. We're not alone because we all go through it.
Right.
We all have some form of desire to get better at everything we do, but you got to be able to go into those places and say, you know what, I really don't care what anybody else thinks anymore, because I want to be better. I want to help. I'm tired of living this life, and I want to be able to be happy. And if I need to get help, great. If I got to get medicine, great. But if there is somebody else I can talk to that can show me something different, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because go ahead.
No, go.
No, I think that's important too, because getting the help and getting the assistance and all that stuff, just like how you just mentioned right now, it's like you want to be happy, you want to live happy.
Yeah.
And also like being on this constant journey and getting the assistance that I help that I need. We also there's also that thinking is that mindset of, oh well, if you're dealing with this, then this is how there's that perception, or this is how you're supposed to look, this is how you're supposed to carry yourself. Hey, I'm a happy-go-lucky person. I think I lived like a normal, perfect life to the best of my ability. But yes, I do have issues and all that stuff. But that's also something too for other people to understand, for the outsiders, is to understand that, I deal with things, but I'm also a normal person. I also travel. I also can do this, and I also can do that. It's just sometimes I may be limited, and I don't know that. So, but yeah, anyway,
there'll be good days and there'll be bad days, but
But anyway, well, I appreciate. I know you have to get going. I appreciate you coming on. Maybe maybe this is the first of many. I don't know. Maybe
I think it's great.
I'll talk to Royce and see if I'll talk to him about it and see how this one progresses or whatnot. But thank you for sharing. Thank you for giving your perspective, and thank you for what you're doing. And hopefully you can keep at it, and maybe later down the road we could get back some. Just kind of let us know of where you're, how's that is progressing, and thank you for helping the homeowners, because that homeownership is a headache. First of all, to get into a house is a headache. Staying in a house is another headache, and if you're about to lose your house, I can only imagine. So.
And I will put this out there. I was one of the first members of it's called CDPE, and I can't believe I totally forgot about this. Certified Distress Property Expert. I mean, this is a designation nationwide. So I don't have I don't get paid for anything, but I always tell people like we're an organization nationwide, so like if anybody ever needed help with any navigation on any of that, I mean, I'm definitely would love to be a resource for whoever to direct them, because I actually worked with the United States Treasury and Congress and a whole bunch of people to have homeowners get help, and that was one of my platforms after I endured all that hardship myself. So one of my goals these days is to do a nonprofit to be able to direct people, because we're going back into that season again where you can see certain things happening where people are going to need help and stuff like that. So so my Facebook, Royce, you can give that to them. I don't even know how to direct anybody to my Facebook. I don't even know what the thingamajigger is, but I know how bad is that, but if there's anybody that ever needs help with that, I'm pretty connected with with resources to help anybody.
Okay. Well, I'll be sure to include that in the show notes or whatnot. Yeah. But and then whatever else, I'll send you a text message or get the information from Royce, and and whatever you want to share on there as far as contact information and whatnot. And whatever other resources you want me to include into the show notes, links or anything, I'll be happy to put that on there. But again, thank you for coming on, and
thank you.
and it's always good to have it's with podcasting. It's hard to carry it by yourself. It's better to have the conversation with someone else, but it's always good to have a third person to provide that, because sometimes you may two individuals may talk, like how Royce was saying, we're seeing the same thing, two different perspectives, but then we'll have that third person to give us a third perspective, or validate or our own perspective. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Alrighty. And with that, well, everybody, thank you for Royce, do you have anything else to say?
Oh no, I'm good, bro.
Alrighty, and all right. Well, with that being said, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Royce, for coming on and on this episode and recording with me and shedding some light and continuing the conversation of mental health. And we touched on the Me Too movement a little bit. Both of those are equally important. Not one is greater than the other one, but again, if you know any help, I'll provide some information on the show notes. Keep an eye on that. And with that being said, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you found this episode informative. Probably one of the first ones that we didn't joke about a lot of things, because sometimes that's how that happens. Sometimes it's a serious topic. Sometimes, you just got to read your audience. And with that being said, hey, the KC Stork, I know you're going to join us real soon. I know things haven't been working out for you. You're starting a new job and all that stuff, but I got you, my brother. And again, this is the 30 Pieces of Silver from the Nicaraguan podcast. Thank you for listening and enjoy the music.